Maya Chen, 29 years old, and 3 hours ago my best friend Jenna handed me a wedding invitation without, warning me whose name would be printed inside. She didn't ease into it, didn't prepare me, just slid that cream-colored envelope across the coffee table like it was a takeout menu, not a grenade. The embossed letters caught the afternoon light. I saw his name before I could look away. All I managed to say was congratulations. But when I said congratulations, what I really meant was, I thought I'd buried this deep enough that it couldn't. Claw its way back up. The invitation sat between us on my coffee table, that expensive cardstock somehow heavier than it should be. Jenna was watching me with that careful expression people use when they're waiting for you to break. I could feel my thumb rubbing against the edge of my mug, back and forth, like if I just kept moving, I wouldn't have to think about the fact that Ethan Park was getting married, not to me. Obviously not to me. To someone named Claire Westbrook, according to the elegant script. You okay? Jenna asked, and I realized I'd been staring at the invitation for too long. Of course, I said. Why wouldn't I be? That was 5 years of therapy talking. 5 years of telling myself I was over it, over him, over the entire disaster. Of us. 5 years of building a life that had nothing to do with Ethan Park or the way. He'd looked at me the last time I saw him like I was destroying something he couldn't live without. I'd moved on. I had a career I loved, an apartment I decorated myself, friends who didn't know the old version of me who'd fallen apart when he left. I went on dates. I laughed at jokes. I woke up most mornings without that hollow feeling in my chest. Most mornings. The wedding's in 6 weeks, Jenna said carefully. In Seattle. I know it's asking a lot, but Marcus is in the wedding party, and I thought, maybe we could make a weekend of it. You don't have to go to the ceremony if you don't want to. We could just, I'll go, I heard myself say. Jenna blinked. To Seattle. To the wedding. Maya. It's been 4 years, Jenna. 4 years since I've even seen him. I'm fine. Really? I picked up the invitation, forcing myself to look at it properly. Ethan's name in that formal font, the date, the venue, some boutique hotel overlooking Puget Sound. I'm happy for him. The lie tasted like old coffee, but here's what I told myself as Jenna left that afternoon, as I put that invitation on my fridge like it was any other social obligation. I was fine. I'd done the work. I'd processed the grief, the anger, the betrayal. I'd learned to be alone. I'd learned to be whole without him. What I didn't know yet was that believing you're healed and actually being healed are two very different things. And I was about to learn that lesson the hard way. Let me back up. Because if you're going to understand why that invitation felt like a punch to the throat, you need to understand what Ethan and I were. What I thought we were. We met in college sophomore year in a film studies class neither of us needed. For our majors. I was there because I loved movies. He was there because it fit his schedule. We got paired for a project analyzing Korean New Wave cinema, and I remember thinking he was pretentious when he said his favorite director was Hong Sang-soo. Of course it is, I'd said. Let me guess. You also think Terrence Malick is underrated? He'd grinned at me, the slow smile that made my stomach flip. I think Terrence Malick is exactly as rated as he should be. But I'm willing to be convinced otherwise. We spent 6 weeks on that project. We only needed 2. The other 4 weeks were just excuses to keep meeting at the library, at coffee shops, at his apartment where his roommate was never home. We'd start talking about film theory and end up talking about everything. Elsa's family's expectations, my fear of not being good enough. The way we both felt like we were performing versions of ourselves for everyone around us. Except with each other. With each other, we could just be. I fell in love with him somewhere between week 3 and week 4, in the middle of an argument about whether Park Chan-wook's use of violence was gratuitous or essential. He'd been gesturing wildly, the way he did when he was passionate about something, and I realized I wanted to watch him talk about things he cared about for the rest of my life. Terrifying thought for a 20-year-old. Even more terrifying when he kissed me that night, soft and careful, like I was. Something precious he was afraid to break. I've wanted to do that since the first day, he'd whispered against my mouth. When I called you pretentious, Especially then. We were together for 3 years after that. 3 years of the kind of love that feels like it's rewriting your DNA. We moved in together senior year, got a tiny apartment with a broken heater and a view of a brick wall. We didn't care. We were building something. Or I thought we were. He wanted to go to graduate school for architecture. I wanted to start working, build my career in graphic design. We had plans. We'd make it work. Long distance if we had to, but not forever. Just until we could be in the same city again. We're solid, he used to say, pulling me close on our terrible futon. You and me were solid. I believed him. Right up until the night he came home from his graduate school interviews and told me he'd been accepted to a program in London. Full scholarship. 2 years, maybe 3. London? I'd repeated, like I'd misheard. I know it's far, but Maya, this program, it's everything I've been working toward. And it's only 2 years. We can do 2 years. You didn't tell me you applied to London. He'd gone. Still, I didn't think I'd get in. But you did. And now you're going. We'll make it work. How? I'd asked, and I could hear, my voice cracking. How do we make it work when you'll be 5,000 miles away and I'll be here, trying to start my career? When we can barely afford rent now, how do we afford plane tickets? When do we see each other? Holidays? Summers? Maya, you made this decision without me. I didn't decide anything. Yet, yes, you did. The moment you applied without telling me you decided, we fought for 3 days. The kind of fighting that strips everything down to the bone, where you say, things you can't take back. He said I was being selfish, that I didn't support his dreams. I said he was choosing his career over us, over me. Both of us were right. Both of us were wrong. On the 4th day, I packed a bag. Don't do this, he'd said, standing in the doorway of our bedroom. Maya, please. We can figure this out. You're going to London. I don't have to. Yes, you do. And I can't ask you not to, but I can't do this either. I can't spend 2 years waiting for phone calls and counting down days until I see you for a week. I can't build my life around your absence. So that's it? 3 years and you're just done? I'd looked at him then, really looked at him, and I'd seen the same pain in his eyes that was tearing through my chest. But I'd also seen something else, relief. Just a flicker of it, but it was there. He wanted to go. He wanted London, wanted the adventure, wanted to see who he could become, without me, and I couldn't hate him for it, even though I wanted to. I love you, I'd said, but I love myself too. And staying in this, waiting for you, hoping you'll come back, it'll destroy me. So yeah, I'm done. I'd walked out of that apartment and I didn't look back. That was 4 years ago. 4 years of radio silence. We didn't follow each other on social media. Didn't have mutual friends who gave updates. I'd heard through Jenna that he'd finished his program, that he was back in States, working for some prestigious firm in Seattle. But I didn't ask for details. Didn't want them. I'd built a life without him. A good life. Or so I kept telling myself. The 6 weeks between getting that invitation and the wedding were strange. I kept expecting to feel something, some surge of emotion that would confirm I wasn't as okay as I claimed, but it never came. I went to work, met with clients, had drinks with friends. I even went on a date with a guy from my gym, though I knew by the appetizers it wasn't going anywhere. You seemed distracted, he'd said, not unkindly. Sorry. Work stuff. But it wasn't work stuff. It was the way my brain kept circling back to that invitation, to Ethan's name, to the question I couldn't stop asking myself, what did Claire Westbrook have? That I didn't? Stupid question. Unfair question, but I couldn't stop asking it. Jenna checked in every few days, always casual, always giving me an out. You know you don't have to come, right? I can tell Marcus you have a work thing. I'm coming. I'd say, I want to. Another lie. But I'd committed to it now, and backing out felt like admitting defeat. The night before the flight to Seattle, I stood in front of my closet trying to decide what you wear to your ex-boyfriend's wedding. Something that said, I'm doing great without you, but not I'm trying too hard to. Prove I'm doing great without you. I settled on a navy dress, simple and elegant, professional. Like I was attending a work function, not the funeral of a relationship I'd supposedly moved on from. My phone buzzed. Jenna, flight's at 9 a.m. I'll pick you up at 6:30. I'll be ready. I wasn't ready, but I got on that plane anyway. Seattle was gray and drizzling when we landed, which felt appropriate. Jenna and Marcus chatted about the weekend's schedule while I stared out the car window at the unfamiliar city. Ethan lived here now, walked these streets, had favorite coffee shops and restaurants and a whole life I knew nothing about. The thought should have hurt. Instead, it just felt distant, like I was thinking about a stranger. Maybe that's what he was now, a stranger who used to know me better than anyone. The hotel was exactly as pretentious as the invitation suggested. All exposed brick and Edison bulbs, the kind of place that charged $18 for a cocktail and called it artisanal. Our rooms were on the 4th floor, and Jenna had made sure mine was at the opposite end of the hall from where the wedding party was staying. Just in case, she'd said. I'm fine, I'd reminded her. I know, but just in case. The rehearsal dinner was that night. I wasn't invited, thank God, which meant I had the evening to myself. I should have been relieved. Instead, I felt restless, like my skin didn't fit right. I went for a walk. The hotel was in Capitol Hill, all trendy boutiques and coffee shops with names, like Victrola and Analog. I wandered without direction, hands in my coat, pockets, rain misting against my face. It felt good to move, to be anonymous in a city where no one knew me. I ended up in a bookstore, one of those independent places with creaky floors, and a cat sleeping on the counter. I was browsing the fiction section, not really reading the titles, when I heard it, his laugh. I'd know that sound anywhere. Low and warm, the kind of laugh that made everyone around him want to join in. My whole body went cold. I turned slowly, like maybe if I moved carefully enough, I could rewind time, walk out of the store before he saw me. But it was too late. Ethan Park was standing 10 feet away, holding a book and talking to a woman with auburn hair. Claire, I assumed. She was beautiful in that effortless way some people are, laughing at something. He'd said, her hand on his arm, and then he looked up. Our eyes met. 4 years collapsed into nothing. I watched his expression shift surprise, then something I couldn't name, then a careful neutrality that felt worse than anger would have. Maya, he said. Just my name. But the way he said it, like he was testing the weight of it in his mouth after. Years of silence made my chest tight. Hi, I managed. Claire looked between us, her smile faltering. Do you two know each other? We went to college together, Ethan said, which was technically true and completely inadequate. Oh! Are you here for the wedding? I should have lied. Should have said I was in town for work. What a coincidence. Congratulations, I really should go. Instead, I said, yeah. I'm friends with Marcus. That's wonderful. Claire's smile was genuine, warm. She had no idea who I was, what I'd been. The more the merrier. Ethan, you should catch up with your friend. I need to grab that book for my mom anyway. She kissed his cheek and disappeared into the stacks, and then it was just us, Ethan and me, standing in a bookstore in Seattle with 4 years of silence. Between us and everything we'd never said. You look good, he said finally. So do you? He did. Older, more settled into himself. He'd always been handsome, but now there was a confidence to him that hadn't. Been there before. London had been good to him. I didn't know you were coming to the wedding, he said. Jenna's my best friend. Right. Of course. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I remembered. This is weird. Yeah, I mean, it's good to see you. It's fine, Ethan. Really, congratulations, by the way. Claire seems lovely. She is. He said it simply, like it was a fact. We met at the firm. She's a landscape architect. That's great. We were being so polite, so careful. Like we were acquaintances making small talk, not two people who'd once known. Every scar and secret the other carried. How have you been? He asked. Good. Really good. My design business is doing well. I have my own clients now, mostly branding work for startups. That's amazing. Maya. I always knew you'd kill it. The sincerity in his voice caught me off guard. I'd expected awkwardness, Maybe some residual tension, not this genuine warmth. Thanks. And you're at a firm here? Yeah. Benson and Associates. It's been good. Challenging work. I'm happy for you. I meant it. That was the strangest part. Standing there looking at him, I realized I genuinely was happy he'd found success, found someone, found a life that worked. So why did my hands feel numb? I should let you get back to Claire, I said. Yeah, but Maya. He hesitated. I'm glad you're here. I mean it. I know things ended badly between us, but I've thought about you over the years. Wondered how you were doing. Me too, I admitted. Maybe we could grab coffee this weekend. Catch up properly? Every instinct screamed at me to say no. To keep the distance I'd worked so hard to build, but I heard myself say, sure, that would be nice. He smiled, and for just a second he looked like the boy I'd fallen in love with in that film studies class. Then Claire reappeared with a book, and the moment broke. I left the store and walked back to the hotel in the rain, my mind spinning. I was fine. I'd been fine for 4 years. So why did seeing him feel like the ground had shifted beneath my feet? And why couldn't I shake the feeling that agreeing to coffee was a mistake I was going to regret? If you've ever convinced yourself you're over something only to have one moment prove you were lying to yourself the whole time, stay with me. Because what I didn't know yet was that this weekend wasn't going to be about closure. It was going to crack open everything I'd spent 4 years trying to bury. And by the time I figured that out, it would be too late to walk away. Back in my hotel room, I did what any rational person would do after running. Into their ex-Beyoncé well, almost Beyoncé, I poured myself a glass of wine from the mini bar and stared at my phone. Jenna had texted, how's the solo evening? Want to grab dinner? I should have said yes. She'd have filled the space with distraction, with her steady presence and normal conversation. Instead, I typed, I'm good, tired from the flight, going to order room service and crash early. Another lie, I wasn't tired. I was wired, my brain replaying that bookstore encounter on an endless loop, the way Ethan had said my name. The way Claire had touched his arm with easy affection. The way I'd felt absolutely nothing and everything all at once. Here's what I'd told myself over the past 4 years, the story. I'd constructed about Ethan and me. We were young. We wanted different things. The breakup was mutual, necessary, the right choice for both of us. I'd grieved. I'd healed. I'd moved on. Clean narrative. Tidy ending. But sitting in that hotel room, wine glass sweating in my hand, I started, remembering all the parts I'd conveniently edited out, like how I'd cried every day for 3 months after I left, like how I drafted 100 texts I never sent, apologies and accusations and desperate pleas to try again, like how I'd seen a guy with dark hair and broad shoulders on the subway 6, months later, and my heart had stopped, absolutely convinced it was him, only to feel crushing disappointment when he turned around and was a stranger. Like how I'd kept one of his t-shirts, the gray one he'd worn so much it was soft as silk, and I'd slept in it until it stopped smelling like him. Like how I'd finally thrown it away 2 years ago, and I'd cried harder doing that than I had at the actual breakup. I told myself these were just the normal stages of grief, that everyone goes through them, that the fact I could think about him now without that crushing weight on my chest meant I was healed. But what if I wasn't healed? What if I'd just gotten really good at not thinking about it? I didn't sleep well that night. I kept waking up, disoriented, forgetting where I was. Each time it would take a moment to remember Seattle, hotel, wedding, Ethan. By 6 a.m., I gave up and went to the hotel gym. Maybe I could run this restless energy out of my system. The gym was empty except for one other person on the treadmills. Of course it was him. Ethan looked up when I walked in, surprise flickering across his face before, settling into something more guarded. Early riser, he said. Couldn't sleep. I climbed onto the treadmill 2 down from his, leaving 1. Empty between us. Neutral territory. Me neither. We ran in silence for a while, just the rhythmic pounding of our feet and the whir of the machines. It should have been awkward. Instead, it felt strangely familiar. We'd done this before, back when we lived together, early morning runs before. Class, you still do the 5-mile route? He asked. I glanced at his screen. He was at mile 3. Usually, you, yeah, some habits stick. More silence. My heart was pounding, but I couldn't tell if it was from the running or from his proximity. About that coffee, he said, I meant it. But if it's too weird, it's not weird. Maya, okay, it's weird. But I think we should do it anyway. I didn't look at him, kept my eyes on the wall in front of me. We were important to each other once. We should be able to have a conversation. Okay? He sounded relieved. Tomorrow? There's a place near here that does great pour-overs. Of course you know the coffee scene. He laughed, and I felt something in my chest loosen. Some things don't change, but everything had changed. That was the problem. We finished our runs, made awkward small talk about the wedding schedule, and went our separate ways. I showered and tried to convince myself that coffee with Ethan was a mature, healthy decision, that it would give us both closure, that I wasn't secretly hoping for something I couldn't even name. The wedding was that afternoon. I'd spent 2 hours getting ready, which was ridiculous. I'd changed outfits 3 times before going back to the navy dress. I'd done my makeup twice. I'd had a full internal debate about whether wearing my hair up or down sent a message. You're being insane, I told my reflection. My reflection didn't disagree. Jenna knocked on my door at 2. She looked stunning in her rose gold dress, her hair in an elegant updo. You look beautiful, I said. So do you. You okay? Why does everyone keep asking me that? Because you ran into your ex-boyfriend yesterday and agreed to have coffee with him tomorrow, and now we're going to watch him marry someone else. When she put it like that, it did. Sounds slightly unhinged. I'm fine, I said. Really? It's just coffee. We're adults. We can be civil. Jenna studied me for a long moment. You know what I think? I'm not sure I want to. I think you've spent 4 years convincing yourself you're over him because it was easier than admitting. You still have feelings. I don't have feelings for him. And then why did you? Agree to coffee? Because, I stopped. Why had I agreed? Because we left things unfinished. And maybe this is a chance to finish them properly? Or maybe it's a chance to realize they were never really finished at all. She left me with that thought, and I hated how much it rattled me. The ceremony was at 4 in a garden behind the hotel. They'd lucked out with the weather. The rain had stopped, leaving everything green and glistening. White chairs were arranged in neat rows, flowers everywhere, string lights. Waiting for evening. It was beautiful. It was torture. I sat in the back with Jenna and Marcus, watching guests arrive. Ethan's parents, who I recognized even after 4 years. His sister, who'd always been kind to me. Friends from college, from his firm, from Claire's life. A whole world of people who knew him now, who were part of his present, while I was just a ghost from his past. The music started. Everyone stood. Claire appeared at the end of the aisle, and I had to admit she was stunning. Her dress was simple, elegant, perfect. She was glowing with that particular joy that comes from knowing you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And then I made the mistake of looking at Ethan. He was standing at the altar in a perfectly tailored suit and the expression on. His face when he saw Claire walking toward him, I had to look away, because I recognized that expression. I'd seen it before years ago in our tiny apartment with the broken heater. He looked at me like that once, like I was his whole world. The ceremony was short, personal. They'd written their own vows. Claire went first, talking about how Ethan had taught her that love was about choosing each other every day, about building something together, brick by brick. Then it was Ethan's turn. Claire, he said, his voice steady and sure. 4 years ago I was lost. I'd just come back from London, and I didn't know who I was or what I wanted. I'd made choices I regretted, hurt people I cared about, and I wasn't sure I deserved a second chance at happiness. My hands clenched in my lap. But then I met you, and you showed me that the past doesn't have to define the future, that it's possible to forgive yourself and start over. You gave me permission to be imperfect, to make mistakes, to be human. And every day with you has been a gift I never thought I'd get. He was crying. Claire was crying. Half the audience was crying. I sat there perfectly still, feeling like I was watching this from very far away. I promise to choose you every day, Ethan continued, to build our life together with intention and care, to be the partner you deserve, to love you with everything I have. They kissed. Everyone applauded. I felt nothing. That was the scariest part. I should have felt something: sadness, anger, jealousy, relief. That there was just this vast emptiness where my emotions should have been. Jenna squeezed my hand. You okay? Yeah, I whispered. I'm fine. The reception was in the hotel ballroom, all twinkling lights and elegant table settings. I found my seat at a table with Jenna, Marcus, and some of Marcus's college. Friends I vaguely remembered. Safe territory. Dinner was served. Speeches were made. Ethan's best man told embarrassing stories about their college days carefully, edited to remove any mention of me. Claire's maid of honor talked about how perfect they were together, how she'd never seen Claire so happy. I drank champagne and smiled and made small talk and felt like I was performing. A role in a play I hadn't auditioned for. Then came the dancing. Ethan and Claire's first dance was to some indie song I didn't recognize. Something about coming home. They moved together easily, comfortably, like they'd done this 1,000 times. Maybe they had. After the first dance, the floor opened up. Jenna and Marcus joined the crowd. I stayed at the table, nursing my champagne, telling myself I'd join in a minute. Not a dancer. I looked up. One of Marcus's friends, Tom. Tim was smiling down at me. Not tonight, I said. Come on. One dance. I promise I'm only moderately terrible. I let him pull me onto the floor, because it was easier than explaining why I wanted to stay seated. We swayed to some upbeat song, and he chatted about his job in finance, and I made appropriate responses, and the whole time I was hyper-aware of where Ethan was in the room, dancing with his mother, then with Claire's mother, then with his sister. He didn't look at me once, which was good. That's what I wanted. So why did it feel like rejection? I made it until 10 before I couldn't take it anymore. I told Jenna I had a headache, which wasn't entirely a lie. My head was pounding from champagne and forced smiles. She offered to come with me, but I waved her off. Stay, have fun. I'm just going to sleep. I escaped to my room, kicked off my heels, and stood at the window looking out at Seattle's lights. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You left early. My heart stopped. I stared at the message, trying to figure out how he'd gotten my number. Then I remembered. Jenna. She must have given it to him for the coffee plans. I typed and deleted 3 responses before settling on headache, 3 dots. Appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. I'm glad you came. I didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know what he wanted me to say. Finally, I typed, congratulations. It was a beautiful wedding. Thanks. See you tomorrow for coffee? Yeah. What time? 10? I'll text you the address. Okay. Good night, Maya. Good night. I set my phone down and sat on the edge of the bed, still in my dress, and let myself feel everything I'd been holding back all day. The ache in my chest, the tightness in my throat, the overwhelming sense that I'd made a terrible mistake coming here. Not because seeing Ethan marry someone else hurt, but because it didn't hurt enough, and I didn't know what that meant. I didn't sleep that night either. I kept replaying the ceremony, the vows, the way Ethan had looked at Claire. Kept comparing it to how he used to look at me. Kept wondering if I'd imagined that we'd ever had something real, or if I'd just been a chapter in his story that he'd moved past while I was still stuck on the same page. At 3 a.m., I did something I hadn't done in 2 years. I opened Instagram and searched for his name. His profile was private, but I could see his profile picture. Him and Claire, laughing at something off camera. His bio said, building things. Married to Claire Westbrook. Married to. Present tense, current status. This was his life now. I closed the app and stared at the ceiling until dawn. The coffee shop was called Slate. All concrete floors and minimalist. Design, very Seattle, very Ethan. I got there 5 minutes early and ordered a latte I didn't want, just to have something to do with my hands. Found a table by the window. Watched people walk by with their dogs and their reusable shopping bags and their uncomplicated lives. Ethan arrived exactly at 10 because of course he did. He'd always been punctual. Hey, he said, sliding into the seat across from me. Thanks for meeting me. Of course. He ordered a pour-over. I'd been right about that, and we sat in awkward silence until it arrived. So, he said finally, this is weird. You keep saying that because it keeps being true. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I don't know how to do this, Maya. I don't know how to sit across from you and make small talk like you're old. Acquaintances who lost touch. Then don't. He looked up surprised. You wanted to catch up, I said. So let's actually catch up. No small talk. No pretending we're strangers. Okay. He took a breath. How have you really been? Honestly, I don't know anymore. The words came out before I could stop them. I thought I was fine. I thought I'd moved on. But being here, seeing you, I'm realizing I might have just gotten really good at not thinking about it. He was quiet for a long moment. I know what you mean. Do you? You think I didn't spend the last 4 years wondering if I made the right choice? If I should have stayed, should have fought harder, should have chosen you instead of London? My chest tightened. Did you? Wonder, I mean, every day for the first year, less the second year. By the third year, I'd convinced myself it was for the best, that we were too young, wanted different things, that the timing was wrong. And now, he looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes I couldn't name. Now I'm married to someone else, and I'm happy. I am. Claire is amazing, and we have a good life together. But seeing you. Yesterday I realized I never got closure. We never got closure. We just ended, and then we spent 4 years pretending the other person didn't exist. What kind of closure are you looking for, Ethan? I don't know. Maybe just to understand why it fell apart so fast. We were solid, and then suddenly we weren't, and I never understood what happened. I stared at him. You're joking. What? You don't know what happened? You applied to a program in London without telling me. You made a decision about our future without including me in it. And then you acted like I was the unreasonable one for not wanting to wait. Around for 2 years while you lived your dream. I didn't ask you to wait. Around. Yes, you did. That's exactly what you asked. You wanted me to put my life on hold, to build everything around your absence, and then be grateful when you came back. That's not fair, isn't it? I could feel 4 years of buried anger rising to the surface. You gotta go to London. You gotta have your adventure. Figure out who you were, build your career. What was I supposed to do? Wait by the phone? Visit twice a year? Pretend that was enough? I would have come back when? After 2 years? 3? And then what? We'd just pick up where we left off, like no time had passed? Like we hadn't become completely different people? He was quiet, his jaw tight. You wanted me to sacrifice everything, I continued, my voice shaking now. My career, my independence, my sense of self. And you couldn't understand why I wouldn't do it. Why I chose myself instead of you. You're right, he said quietly. You're absolutely right. I was selfish. I wanted everything. London and you and I didn't think about what I was asking. You to give up. The anger drained out of me as quickly as it had come, leaving me exhausted. I'm sorry, Ethan said. I should have said that 4 years ago. I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry I made you feel like you weren't enough. You were always enough, Maya. More than enough. Tears were burning behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Why are you telling me this now? You're married. You've moved on. What's the point? Because I need you to know that losing you was the biggest regret of my life. Not London. That was the right choice for my career. But the way I handled it, the way I handled us, that was wrong. And I've carried that guilt for 4 years. So this is about you feeling better? About absolving yourself? No, maybe. I don't know. He ran his hand through his hair, frustrated. I just needed you to know that you weren't the problem. I was. And I'm sorry. We sat in silence, the coffee shop bustling around us, too. People trying to make sense of a past that couldn't be changed. I forgive you, I said finally. For what it's worth, I forgive you. Thank you. But Ethan, I need you to know something too. He looked at me, waiting. I spent 4 years telling myself I was over you, that I'd healed, moved on, built a life that had nothing to do with you. But sitting here, I'm realizing that's not true. I didn't heal. I just stopped feeling. His expression shifted, something like pain crossing his face. I went numb, I continued. I dated people I didn't care about. I threw myself into work. I built this perfect life on paper, but I never let anyone in, because letting someone in meant risking feeling that kind of pain again, and I couldn't do it. Maya, I'm not telling you this to make you feel guilty. I'm telling you because I need to say it out loud. I need to admit that I'm not okay, that I haven't been okay, and that seeing you marry someone else made me realize I've been lying to myself. For 4 years. Tears were sliding down my face now, and I didn't bother wiping them away. I don't know how to fix it, I whispered. I don't know how to feel again. Ethan reached across the table and took my hand. You'll figure it out. You're the strongest person I know. I don't feel strong. You are. You chose yourself 4 years ago, even though it hurt. That took courage. It didn't feel like courage. It felt like survival. Maybe they're the same thing. We sat there, hands linked across the table, two people who'd loved each other once and lost each other and were trying to figure out how to let go. I should go, I said finally, pulling my hand back. Claire's probably wondering where you are. She knows I'm here. I told her I was meeting you. What did she say? That she hoped it would give us both closure. She's very understanding. She is. He smiled, sad and genuine. She's good for me. She makes me want to be better. I'm glad you found that. I hope you find it. Too, Maya. You deserve it. I stood up, gathering my coat and bag. Thanks for the coffee? Maya, he stood too. For what it's worth, I think you're going to be okay. Better than okay. How do you know? Because you always were. Even when we were together, you were the one who had it figured out. You knew who you were, what you wanted. I was the one who was lost. We were both lost. Maybe. But you found your way. And you'll find it again. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. We hugged, brief and careful, and then I walked out of that coffee shop and didn't look back. Ah, if you've ever had a conversation that cracked you open and left you raw, you know what the rest of that day felt like. I walked for hours, through neighborhoods I didn't know, past lives I wasn't living. I cried on a park bench while a dog walker pretended not to notice. I sat in a bookstore, not the same one, and stared at pages without reading them. By the time I got back to the hotel, it was evening. Jenna was in the lobby, clearly waiting for me. Where have you been? I've been texting you for hours. I pulled out my phone. 7 missed calls. 12 texts. Sorry. I needed to walk. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. Coffee didn't go well. It went exactly how it needed to. What does that mean? It means I finally admitted I'm not okay. And that's the first step to actually being okay. She pulled back, studying me. What do you need? To go home. Can we change our flights? Already done. We leave tomorrow morning. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. Come on. Let's order room service and watch terrible TV and not talk about Ethan Park. We did exactly that. And for the first time in 4 years, I let myself feel everything I'd been avoiding. It hurt, but it also felt like the beginning of something. Like maybe, finally, I could start to heal for real. The flight home was quiet. Jenna dozed against the window while I stared at the clouds and tried to figure out what came next. I'd spent 4 years building a life I thought I wanted. But sitting there at 30,000 feet, I realized I'd been building a fortress, not a life. High walls, locked doors, no way in and no way out. Safe. Empty. When I got back to my apartment, it looked different somehow. Same furniture, same art on the walls, same plants I kept forgetting to water. But it felt like a stage set, carefully arranged to look like someone lived. There, someone did live there, just not really me. I dropped my bag by the door and stood in the middle of my living room, looking at the life I'd constructed. The minimalist decor that said I'm sophisticated and have my life together. The bookshelf organized by color because it looked good in photos. The kitchen that barely got used because I ate most meals at my desk. It was perfect. It was suffocating. I pulled out my phone and did something I hadn't done in years. I called my therapist. Dr. Reeves, it's Maya Chen. I know it's been a while, but I think I need to come back. That first session back was brutal. I'd stopped therapy 2 years ago because I'd convinced myself I was done, that I'd processed everything I needed to process. Dr. Reeves had been skeptical but supportive, telling me I could always come back if I needed to. Turned out I needed to. So you went to your ex-boyfriend's wedding, she said in that neutral, therapist voice that somehow made everything sound both significant and manageable. I did. And how was that? Terrible. Enlightening. Necessary. I twisted my hands in my lap. I realized I've been lying to myself. About being over him, about being okay, about having moved on. What made you? Realize that seeing him happy with someone else should have hurt more, or hurt less, but it just felt empty. Like I've been so busy not feeling anything that I forgot how to feel at all. Dr. Reeves nodded, making a note. You've talked before about using work as a way to avoid processing difficult emotions. Do you think that's what's been happening? I think I'd been using everything to avoid processing. Work, yes, but also this idea of who I'm supposed to be. The successful independent woman who doesn't need anyone, who's perfectly fine on her own. And are you fine on your own? I thought about my apartment, my carefully curated life, the dates that went nowhere because I never let anyone pass the surface. No, I said quietly, I'm lonely. I've been lonely for 4 years, but I was too proud to admit it. Loneliness isn't weakness, Maya. I know that intellectually, but emotionally, I've been treating it like a failure. Like if I just worked hard enough, achieved enough, became enough, I wouldn't need anyone. What changed? Ethan apologized. He told me losing me was his biggest regret. And instead of feeling vindicated or satisfied, I just felt sad. Because we both lost something and we can't get it back, and we've both been carrying that loss in different ways. Do you want him back? The question caught me off guard. Did I? No, I said slowly. I don't think so. He's married. He's happy. And honestly, I don't think we'd work now anyway. We're different people. Then what do you want? I want to stop being numb. I want to feel things again, even if it hurts. I want to let people in. I want to build a life that's actually mine, not just a performance of what I think my life should look like. Dr. Reeves smiled. That's a good place to start. Over the next few weeks, I started making changes. Small ones at first, because the big ones felt too overwhelming. I rearranged my apartment. Not because it would look better, but because I wanted to. I moved the couch away from the wall, even though it made the room feel smaller. I put my books back in the order I actually wanted to read them, not by color. I bought flowers for myself, bright, messy sunflowers that dropped petals. Everywhere. It felt good. I started cooking again. Real meals, not just salads I ate standing at the counter. I invited Jenna over for dinner and we drank wine and talked about everything. Except Ethan. You seem different, she said, helping me wash dishes. Different how? Miter. Like you're actually here instead of just going through the motions. I'm trying to be. It looks good on you. I also started saying no to work I didn't want to do. A client wanted me to rebrand their company with the aesthetic I hated, all harsh. Angles and aggressive colors. Old Maya would have said yes because it paid well and because saying no felt like admitting I couldn't handle it. New Maya said, I don't think I'm the right fit for this project, but I can. Recommend some other designers who might be. The client was surprised. I was surprised, but it felt right. A month after Seattle, I got a message on LinkedIn from Ethan. My first instinct was to delete it without reading, but I'd promised myself I'd stop avoiding things, so I opened it. Hey, Maya. I hope it's okay that I'm reaching out. Claire and I were talking, and she mentioned that her company is looking for a brand designer for a new project. I immediately thought of you. No pressure at all, but if you're interested, I can send you the details. Hope you're doing well. Ethan. I stared at the message for a long time. A month ago, I would have said no immediately. Too complicated, too much history, too risky. But I was trying to be different, trying to not let fear make my decisions. I typed back, thanks for thinking of me. I'd be interested in hearing more about the project. He sent me the details. It was actually perfect for my portfolio as sustainable architecture firm looking. To rebrand with an emphasis on environmental responsibility. Exactly the kind of work I wanted to be doing. I applied. Got an interview. Nailed the interview. They offered me the project, and I said yes. Working with Claire's company meant occasional contact with Ethan, emails about logistics, brief phone calls to clarify details. It was professional, cordial, and surprisingly easy. We'd both moved on. Not from each other, exactly, but from who we'd been when we were together. 3 months into the project, Claire invited me to lunch. I hope this isn't weird, she said as we sat down at a cafe near her office. But I wanted to meet you properly. Not at a wedding where everything was chaos. It's not weird, I said, though I wasn't entirely sure that was true. Ethan told me about your history. I hope that's okay. Of course. I wanted you to know that I'm not threatened. By you. I know you two had something real and I respect that. But I also know that what he and I have is different. Not better or worse, just different. I liked her immediately. She was direct, honest, secure in herself. I appreciate you saying that, I said. And for what it's worth, I'm not trying to. I know you're not. Ethan knows you're not. But I wanted to clear the air anyway. She smiled. Also, your work is incredible. The concepts you've presented so far are exactly what we were hoping for. We talked about the project, about her work, about Seattle. It was easy, natural. By the end of lunch, I realized I'd made a friend. Not Ethan's wife. Just Claire, a person I genuinely like. We should do this again, she said as we paid the check. I'd like that. Walking back to my apartment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, lightness. Like I'd been carrying a weight I didn't know was there, and someone had finally lifted it. 6 months after Seattle, I went on a date. A real one, not the half-hearted attempts I'd been making for years. His name was David. We'd met at a design conference, bonded over our mutual hatred of Comic Sans, and he'd asked me to dinner with the kind of nervous sincerity that was endearing. I almost said no. Old habits. But I said yes instead. Dinner was at a Thai place in Brooklyn, nothing fancy. We talked about work, about our families, about the terrible apartment he'd lived in during college that had a bathtub in the kitchen. I'm not even joking, he said, laughing. You had to put a board over it to have counter space. That's horrifying. It was character building. I laughed and it felt real. Not performed, not forced. Just genuine amusement. At the end of the night, he walked me to the subway. I had a really good time, he said. Me too. Can I see you again? I thought about all the times I'd said no to. This question. All the ways I'd kept people at arm's length because letting them closer felt too risky. Yes, I said. I'd like that. He kissed me, soft and brief, and I felt something I hadn't felt in 4 years. Hope. David and I started seeing each other regularly. Nothing serious at first, just dinners and movies and long walks through the city. He was easy to be with, funny and kind, and genuinely interested in my life. But more importantly, I let him be those things. I didn't push him away when he asked about my day. I didn't deflect when he wanted to know about my family, my past, my dreams. I let him in. Not all the way. Not yet, but enough that it felt like progress. You're different than when we first met, he said one night, lying on my couch. After dinner. Different how? More present. Like you're actually here with me instead of thinking about being somewhere else. I'm trying to be. It's working. I curled into his side, feeling his warmth, his solidity. Can I tell you something? Anything. I went to my ex-boyfriend's wedding 6 months ago, and it kind of broke me open. Made me realize I'd been going through the motions of life without actually living it. That sounds hard. It was, but it was also necessary. I needed to break open to start healing for real. He was quiet for a moment, his hand running through my hair. Are you healing? Yeah, I think I am. Good. You deserve that. It was such a simple statement, but it made my throat tight. Thank you. For what? For being patient with me. For not pushing. For letting me figure this out at my own pace. Maya, I'm not doing you a Favor. I like you. I want to be here. I tilted my head up to look at him. I like you too. Yeah, yeah. He kissed me, and this time it felt like a promise. Not of forever, not yet, but of possibility, of a future I was finally ready to build. A year after Seattle, I got another message from Ethan. This time it was a text. Hey, I know this is random, but I'm going to be in New York next week for conference. Want to grab coffee? No pressure if you're busy. I showed the text to David. We'd been together for 6 months by then, officially a couple. And I told him everything about Ethan. What do you think? I asked. Do you want to see him? I think so. Not because I have feelings for him, but because I want to see if I can, if it'll be okay. Then you should go. You're not worried? He pulled me. Close. Should I be? No. Then I'm not worried. I met Ethan at a coffee shop in Midtown. He looked good, relaxed, and happy. We hugged, easy and brief, and sat down with our drinks. How have you been? He asked. Really good, actually. The project with Claire's firm went great. I've been getting more work in sustainable design because of it. That's amazing. Claire said you were incredible to work with. She's great. We've actually become friends. He smiled. She mentioned that. I'm glad. How are you? How's married life? Good, really good. We just bought a house, which is terrifying and exciting. Congratulations. We talked for an hour, easy and comfortable. About work, about life, about everything and nothing. It felt like talking to an old friend, someone I'd known in another life. When we said goodbye, he hugged me again. I'm really glad you're doing well, Maya. You seem happy. I am. I'm actually dating someone. Yeah? Tell me about him. His name's David. He's a graphic designer. He's kind and funny and patient with me when I'm being difficult. Sounds perfect. He's pretty great. I smiled. What about you? Any big plans? Claire and I are talking about starting a family. Not right away, but soon. That's wonderful, Ethan. Really. And I meant it. Standing there looking at him, I felt nothing but genuine happiness for his life. Because it wasn't my life, and that was okay. Take care of yourself, he said. You too. I walked away from that coffee shop feeling lighter than I had in years. Not because I'd gotten closure, I'd gotten that in Seattle, but because I'd proven to myself that I could see him, talk to him, be happy for him, and still be okay. Better than okay. 2 years after Seattle, David and I moved in together. It was a big step, one that terrified me. But I was learning that being scared didn't mean I shouldn't do something. It just meant it mattered. We found an apartment in Park Slope, all hardwood floors and big windows. It needed work, but we could see the potential. What do you think? David asked, standing in the empty living room. I looked around, imagining our furniture, our books, our life together in this space. I think it's perfect. We spent weeks making it ours. Painting walls, hanging art, arguing about whether the couch should go against the wall or in the middle of the room. You're very passionate about furniture placement, David said, amused. I learned from experience. The couch goes in the middle, whatever you say. The night we finished unpacking, we ordered pizza and sat on the floor, surrounded by boxes, exhausted and happy. I can't believe we lived together, I said. Having regrets already? None. You? Not a single one. He pulled me close. I love you, Maya. It was the first time he'd said it. We'd been dancing around it for months, both of us feeling it, but neither of us brave enough to say it first. I love you too, I said, and it felt like the easiest thing I'd ever said. Because I did. Not the desperate, all-consuming love I'd had with Ethan, but something steadier, deeper. A love built on trust and honesty and choosing each other every day. A love that felt like home. 3 years after Seattle, I got a wedding invitation in the mail. My own this time. David had proposed on a random Tuesday, no grand gesture or elaborate plan. We'd been cooking dinner, arguing about whether to add more garlic to the pasta. Sauce, and he'd just stopped and said, "Marry me." I'd laughed, thinking he was joking. What? Marry me. I don't have a ring yet, and this isn't romantic, and I'm probably doing this. All wrong. But I love you, and I want to spend my life with you, and I don't want to wait for the perfect moment because this is the perfect moment. So marry me. I'd said yes before he'd even finished talking. We planned a small wedding, just family and close friends. Nothing elaborate, nothing fancy. Just us promising to choose each other. The night before the wedding, Jenna came over to help me pack for the honeymoon. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Nervous, excited, terrified." "All of it. That's normal." "Is it? I keep thinking about Ethan's wedding. How I sat there feeling nothing. And now I'm about to get married and I'm feeling everything. That's because this is real, Maya. This is your life, not someone else's. I know. It's just, I stopped, trying to find the words. 4 years ago, I thought I'd never feel this way again. Never trust someone enough to let them all the way in. And now I'm marrying David, and it feels right, but it's also scary. Love is scary. But you're not the same person you were 4 years ago. You've done the work. You've healed. You're ready for this. How do you know? Because you're not running. 4 years ago, you would have found a reason to push David away. But you didn't. You let him in, even when it was hard. That's how I know you're ready. She was right. I had changed. Not because of Ethan or David or anyone else, but because I'd finally learned to choose myself, to be honest about what I needed, to let people see me as I really was. Messy, imperfect, still healing, but real. The wedding was perfect. Not because everything went according to plan. The flowers were late, the caterer forgot the vegetarian option, it rained during the ceremony. But because none of that mattered. What mattered was standing across from David, holding his hands, promising to build a life together. What mattered was seeing my parents cry, seeing Jenna beam with pride, seeing all the people I loved gathered in one place. What mattered was feeling, for the first time in years, completely and utterly present. During the reception, my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Congratulations, Maya. Wishing you all the happiness in the world." "Ethan." I smiled and put my phone away. "Everything okay?" David asked. "Everything's perfect." And it was. If you've ever thought you were broken beyond repair, if you've ever believed you'd never feel whole again, I want you to know something. Healing isn't linear. It's messy and complicated, and sometimes you have to break open before you can start to mend. 4 years ago, I went to my ex-boyfriend's wedding and realized I'd been lying to myself about being okay. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, admitting that I wasn't healed, that I'd just been numb. But that admission was the beginning of everything. It led me to therapy, to honest conversations, to slowly learning how to feel. Again, it led me to rearrange my apartment, to say no to work I didn't want, to say yes to a date with a man who would become my husband. It led me here, to a life I actually want to live. Not a performance, not a fortress, just a life, messy and imperfect and real. People ask me sometimes if I regret how things ended with Ethan, if I wish we'd tried harder, fought more, found a way to make it work. The answer is no, not because what we had wasn't real or important. It was both of those things. But because losing him taught me something I needed to learn, that I could survive heartbreak, that I could choose myself, even when it hurt, that I could build a life on my own terms. And those lessons led me to David, to a love that's different, but no less profound. A love built on honesty and trust and the willingness to be vulnerable even when it's scary. Ethan and I were right for each other once, but we're not anymore, and that's okay. Because sometimes the greatest love story isn't about finding your way back to someone. It's about finding your way back to yourself. And then, when you're whole again, finding someone who loves you for exactly who you are, not who you were, not who you might become. Just you, right now, in all your messy, imperfect, beautiful reality. 5 years after Seattle, I ran into Ethan one more time. I was in Seattle for a design conference, and I saw him across the street with a stroller. He saw me too. We crossed to meet each other, both of us smiling. "Maya, what are you doing in Seattle?" "Conference." "You?" "Just out for a walk with this one." He gestured to the stroller, where a Tiny baby was sleeping. Meet Sophie. She's 3 months old. Ethan, she's beautiful. Congratulations. Thanks. Fatherhood is terrifying and amazing. He looked at me. How are you? How's married life? Really good. David and I just celebrated our second anniversary. That's wonderful. I'm so happy for you. We chatted for a few more minutes, easy and warm. Then Sophie started fussing and Ethan had to go. It was really good to see you, he said. You too. Give my best to Claire. I will. Take care, Maya. You too. I watched him walk away, pushing the stroller, and I felt nothing but peace. We'd both found our way. Different paths, different destinations. But we were both exactly where we needed to be. And that was the best ending I could have asked for. So, if you're reading this or listening to this and you're in the middle of your own heartbreak, wondering if you'll ever feel whole again, I want you to know you will. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. You'll wake up one morning and realize you went a whole day without thinking about them, then a week, then a month. You'll meet someone new and let them in, even though it's scary. You'll build a life that's actually yours, not just a reaction to what you lost. And one day you'll run into your ex on a street corner and you'll feel nothing but gratitude for what you had, for what you learned, for who you became because of it. That's the real happy ending, not getting them back. Not revenge or vindication or proof that you won, just peace. Just knowing that you're okay, that you're more than okay, that you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And if you're wondering whether it's worth it, whether all the pain and work and vulnerability is worth it, I can tell you with absolute certainty it is, because on the other side of heartbreak is a version of yourself you never knew existed, stronger, wiser, more compassionate. Someone who knows their worth, who doesn't settle, who chooses themselves first. And that person? That person is capable of a love you never imagined possible. A love that's real and honest and built to last. So do the work. Feel the feelings. Break open if you need to. And then, when you're ready, build something beautiful from the pieces. You deserve that. You deserve everything. This is Maya Chen, signing off. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps you write your own. But let me back up again because I'm getting ahead of myself. I want to tell you about the hard parts, the parts I glossed over. The parts where healing didn't feel like progress, where it felt like I was. Moving backward, drowning in feelings I'd kept locked away for so long. Because that's the thing about breaking open, it's not a clean break. It's messy and jagged, and sometimes you cut yourself on the sharp edges. After that first therapy session, after I admitted I wasn't okay, I had what Dr. Dofra Reeves called a period of adjustment. What it actually was 3 weeks of crying at random moments in the grocery store, on the subway, during a client meeting, which was mortifying. I'm so sorry, I'd said, tears streaming down my face while my client stared at me in alarm. I don't know what's happening, but I did know. I was feeling everything I'd refused to feel for 4 years, and it was overwhelming. Jenna came over one night and found me on my couch, surrounded by tissues, watching our college photos on my laptop. Oh, honey, she said, sitting down next to me. I look so young, I said, pointing at a picture of Ethan and me at someone's birthday party. We were laughing at something off camera. His arm around my shoulders, my head tilted toward him. We looked so happy. You were happy. Then why did it end? Because sometimes happy isn't enough. Sometimes timing matters. Sometimes people grow in different directions. I hate that. I closed the laptop. I hate that you can love someone with everything you have and it still doesn't work out. I know. And I hate that I wasted 4 years pretending I was fine, when I was actually just frozen. You didn't waste anything, Maya. You survived. That's not nothing. It feels like nothing. She pulled me into a hug and I cried into her shoulder like I was 23 again, like no time had passed. At all. You're going to be okay, she whispered. I promise. I wanted to believe her. Doctor. Reeves gave me homework. Actual homework, like I was back in school. I want you to write a letter to Ethan, she said. Not to send, just to write. Tell him everything you never got to say. What's the point if I'm not going to? Send it. The point is to get it out of your head and onto paper, to externalize the feelings instead of letting them circle endlessly in your mind. So I wrote the letter. It took me 3 days and filled 12 pages, front and back. I wrote about the anger, the betrayal, the loneliness. I wrote about the good times too, the moments I'd tried to forget because remembering hurt too much. I wrote about how he'd made me feel seen and valued and loved in a way I'd never experienced before or since. I wrote about how losing him had felt like losing a part of myself. And then I wrote about how I'd spent 4 years trying to become someone who didn't need that part back, someone who was complete on their own. But the truth was, I wasn't complete, I was just empty. When I finished, I read it out loud to my empty apartment, my voice shaking. Then I folded it up and put it in a drawer. I didn't burn it or tear it up or throw it away. I just put it somewhere I could find it if I needed to, but didn't have to look at every day. How did it feel? Dr. Reeves asked at our next session. Awful. Cathartic. Necessary. Good. That's exactly what it should feel like. Around this time, I started noticing things I'd been too numb to see before, like how I'd structured my entire life to avoid vulnerability. My apartment was beautiful but impersonal, like a hotel room. I had friends, but I never let them see me struggle. I went on dates, but I never let anyone stay over, never integrated them into my real life. I'd built a perfect facade, and I'd been living behind it for so long I'd forgotten it wasn't real. So I started making changes. Real ones, not just rearranging furniture. I invited Jenna over and told her about the panic attacks I'd been having, the ones I'd been dealing with alone in my bathroom at 3 a.m. Why didn't you tell me? She asked, hurt in her voice. Because I didn't want to be a burden. Maya, you're my best friend. You could never be a burden. I know that logically. But emotionally, I've been so scared of needing people, of being too much. You're not too much. You're exactly enough. It was such a simple statement, but it made me cry. Again, I was crying a lot these days. I also started being honest with my parents. We'd always had a good relationship, but I'd kept them at arm's length after the breakup, not wanting them to worry. I called my mom one Sunday and told her everything. About Seattle, about therapy, about how I'd been struggling. Oh, sweetheart, she said. I wish you'd told us sooner. I didn't want you to think I was falling apart. You're not falling apart. You're putting yourself back together. That's different. It doesn't feel different, I know. But trust me, it is. She paused. You know, when your father and I almost divorced about 10 years ago? Wait, what? We never told you because we worked through it. But there was a year where we were barely speaking, where I was sure we were. Done. And I spent that whole year pretending everything was fine, even to myself. It wasn't until I admitted how bad things were that we could start fixing them. I'd had no idea. What happened? We went to counseling. We learned how to communicate again. We remembered why we fell in love in the first place. That none of that could happen until we stopped pretending. I've been pretending for 4 years. I know, honey, but you're not pretending anymore. And that's the hardest part. Everything else gets easier from here. I hoped she was right. 3 months after Seattle, I was starting to feel more like myself. Not the self I'd been before Ethan, and not the numb self I'd been after. Someone new. Someone I was still getting to know. That's when I met David. It was at a design conference in Boston, one of those industry events where everyone networks aggressively and hands out business cards like they're going. Out of style. I usually hated these things, but my business partner had convinced me to go. You need to get out more, she'd said. Meet people. Make connections? I make plenty of connections. Professional connections. I mean personal ones. I have friends. Maya. She'd given me that look, the one that said she could see right through my bullshit. When's the last time you went on a date? I go on dates. When's the last time you went on a second date? I'd had no answer to that. So I went to Boston, fully intending to network professionally and then hide in my hotel room. But then I sat down at a panel about sustainable design, and the guy next to me leaned over and whispered, "Is it just me, or is this presenter using Comic Sans in his slides?" I'd looked at the screen. He was right. Comic Sans. At a professional design conference. That should be illegal, I'd whispered back. I'm pretty sure it is in some countries. We'd spent the rest of the panel passing notes like middle schoolers, making increasingly ridiculous comments about the presentation. By the end, I was trying not to laugh out loud. I'm David, he'd said afterward, holding out his hand. Maya. Want to grab coffee and talk about how we'd fix that disaster of a presentation? I should have said no. Should have made an excuse, kept my distance, protected myself. But I was trying to be different, trying to say yes to things that scared me. Sure, I'd said. That coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into drinks. Drinks turned into walking around Boston until midnight talking about everything and nothing. So what's your story? He'd asked as we sat on a bench overlooking the harbor. My story? Yeah, everyone has one. The thing that made them who they are. I'd thought about lying, giving him the bowl. Sanitized version. But I was tired of lying. I had my heart broken 4 years ago, I'd said. And I spent those 4 years pretending I was fine when I actually wasn't. I'm trying to do better now. That's brave. It doesn't feel brave. It feels terrifying. Same thing usually. He'd smiled at me, warm and genuine. For what it's worth, I think you're doing great. You don't even know me. Not yet, but I'd like to. Something in my chest had loosened at those words. Not the desperate, all-consuming feeling I'd had with Ethan. Something quieter. Steadier. Hope. We'd exchanged numbers, and I'd gone back to New York thinking that was the end of it. A nice evening with a nice guy, nothing more. But then he'd texted me the next day, found another Comic Sans violation. Thought you should know. He'd attached a photo of a restaurant menu, and I'd laughed out loud on the subway. We'd started texting regularly. Stupid stuff, mostly. Funny signs we saw, terrible design choices, random observations about our days. Nothing deep or meaningful. But it felt good. Easy. Like I could just be myself without performing or pretending. 2 weeks later, he'd texted, I'm going to be in New York this weekend for a friend's birthday. Want to grab dinner? I'd stared at that text for 10 minutes, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. This was a choice point. I could say I was busy, keep him at a distance, protect myself from potential hurt, or I could say yes and see what happened. I'd love to, I'd typed before I could talk myself out of it. That first date in New York was different from Boston, more intentional. We both knew what this was, now not just two designers bonding over bad topography, but an actual date. I'd been nervous in a way I hadn't been in years. Good nervous, the kind that meant I actually cared about the outcome. He'd taken me to a Thai place in Brooklyn, nothing fancy. We talked about our families, our work, our dreams. He'd told me about his terrible college apartment with the bathtub in the kitchen. I'd told him about my business, about how I was trying to focus more on sustainable design. That's amazing, he'd said. The world needs more people who care about that stuff. It's not just about caring. It's about making it accessible, making it the default choice instead of the alternative. See, that's what I love about design. It's not just about making things look good. It's about making things work better. We talked for 3 hours until the restaurant was closing and the staff was giving us pointed looks. I should let you go, he'd said as we stood outside. Yeah, but neither of us moved. Can I see you again? He'd asked. Yes, tomorrow, I'd laughed, eager, very. But I'll wait if you need me to. Tomorrow works. He'd kissed me then, soft and sweet, and I'd felt something I hadn't felt in 4 years. Present. Fully, completely present in the moment. Not thinking about the past, or worrying about the future. Just there with him, feeling everything. David and I fell into an easy rhythm after that. We saw each other 2 or 3 times a week, always his initiative at first. Because I was still learning how to reach out, how to show I wanted someone. But slowly I got better at it. I started texting him first, suggesting plans, letting him into my life in small ways. Want to come over for dinner? I'd asked one night, about a month in. At your place? Yeah, I'll cook. Fair warning, I'm not great at it, but I'm trying to get better. I'd love to. Having him in my apartment felt significant. This was my space, my sanctuary, the place I'd kept carefully separate from my dating life, but I wanted him there, wanted to share this part of myself. I'd made pasta the same dish I'd been making when David proposed years later, though I didn't know that yet. We'd argued about the garlic, drunk wine, laughed at a movie neither of us was really watching. And when he'd left that night, kissing me goodbye at the door, I'd felt something shift. I was letting him in, really letting him in, and it was scary. But it was also right. Of course, it wasn't all smooth sailing. About 2 months into dating, I had a panic attack in front of him. We were at his apartment watching a movie, and a character said something that reminded me of Ethan, something small, insignificant. But it triggered a cascade of memories, and suddenly I couldn't breathe. Maya? Maya, what's wrong? I couldn't answer, couldn't get air. My vision was tunneling, my hands were numb, and I was convinced I was dying. Okay, it's okay. You're having a panic attack. Can you hear me? I need you to breathe with me. He talked me through it, patient and calm, until I could breathe again, and then I cried, embarrassed and exhausted. I'm sorry, I'd said. I'm so sorry. Don't apologize. Are you okay? I don't know. This happens sometimes. Since I'd stopped, not sure how much to tell him. Since your ex, I'd nodded. Do you want to talk about it? And here was another choice point. I could deflect, minimize, pretend it was no big deal, or I could be honest. His name was Ethan, I'd said. We were together for 3 years. He chose his career over me, and I chose myself over him, and we both lost something. And I spent 4 years pretending I was fine when I actually wasn't. I only started dealing with it a few months ago. Before we met? Right. Before. I went to his wedding, actually. That's what made me realize I needed help. David had been quiet for a moment. Processing. That must have been hard. It was. It still is. I'm in therapy. I'm working on it, but sometimes it just hits me out of nowhere. Thank you for telling me. You're not freaked out? Why would I be? Freaked out? Because I'm clearly a mess. He'd pulled me close. You're not a mess. You're human. You went through something painful and you're dealing with it. That's not weakness, Maya. That's strength. I'd wanted to believe him. After that night, things got deeper between us. I told him more about Ethan, about the breakup, about the 4 years of numbness. He told me about his own past, his own heartbreaks and mistakes. We were building something real, something based on honesty and vulnerability and the willingness to show up even when it was hard, but I was still scared. Scared of getting hurt again. Scared of losing myself in someone else. Scared of repeating the same patterns. I don't know how to do this, I'd told Dr. Reeves. How to be in a relationship without losing myself. What makes you think? You'll lose yourself? Because that's what happened with Ethan. I'd built my whole life around him, around us. And when he left, I didn't know who I was anymore. Were you really building your life around him? Or were you building a life together? What's the difference? Building your life around someone means they're the center and you orbit them. Building a life together means you're both the center and you orbit each other. It's a partnership, not a sacrifice. How do I know which one I'm doing? Ask yourself. Am I giving up things that matter to me? Or am I choosing to share my life with someone? I'd thought about that a lot. With Ethan, I'd been willing to give up everything. My career plans, my independence, my sense of self, to make the relationship work. And when he'd asked me to do the same, I'd realized I couldn't. But with David, it felt different. I wasn't giving anything up. I was just making room for him in a life that was already mine. That felt healthier, sustainable, right. 6 months into dating David, he met my parents. It was a big deal. The first person I'd introduced them to since Ethan. My mom had been thrilled. Finally. We were starting to think you'd sworn off relationships entirely. I almost did, I'd admitted, but you didn't. And we're so glad. David had been nervous, which I'd found endearing. He brought flowers for my mom, asked my dad about his work, complimented the dinner my mom had spent all day preparing. He's lovely, my mom had whispered to me while we were doing dishes. And he looks at you like you're the most important person in the room. He Does? Oh, honey, you really don't see it? I thought about the way David looked at me. Steady, warm, present. Not the intense, consuming way Ethan had looked at me. Like I was his whole world. But maybe that was better. Maybe being someone's whole world was too much pressure. Maybe being an important part of their world was enough. More than enough. A year after we started dating, David and I had our first real fight. Not a disagreement or a minor tiff, but an actual fight. It started because I'd canceled plans with him 3 times in 2 weeks, always. Because of work. I'd been taking on too many projects, saying yes to everything, falling back. Into old patterns of using work to avoid feelings. Maya, we need to talk, he'd said when I'd called to cancel again. I know, I'm sorry. This project it's not about the project. It's about the pattern. You keep canceling on me and I'm starting to feel like I'm not a priority. That's not fair. You know how important my work is. I do. But I'm important too. Or at least I thought I was. Of course you are. Then act like it. Make time for me. For us. Stop hiding behind work every time things feel too real. His words had hit like a slap. I'm not hiding. Aren't you? And the truth was, I had been. Things with David had been getting serious, and that scared me. So I'd been pulling back, creating distance, protecting myself. I'm sorry, I'd said, my voice small. You're right. I've been scared. Of what? Of this. Of us. Of how much I care about you. Maya, I care about you too. That's why I'm bringing this up. I don't want to lose you because you're too scared to let me in. I'm trying. I really am. I know. But trying isn't enough if you keep sabotaging us. We'd talked for hours that night, working through it. I'd admitted my fears, my patterns, my tendency to run when things got too close. He'd admitted his own insecurities, his worry that he'd never be enough to make me stay. You are enough, I told him, more than enough. I'm just learning how to believe I deserve this. You do deserve this. You deserve everything. It was the same thing he'd say years later, the night before our wedding. But hearing it then, in the middle of our first real fight, it meant everything. After that fight, I made changes, real ones. I started setting boundaries with work, saying no to projects that didn't serve me. I made time for David, for us, for building the relationship I wanted. And slowly, the fear started to fade. Not completely, I don't think it ever does completely, but enough that I could function, could be present, could let myself be happy. You seem different, Jenna said one day over coffee. Different how? Lighter. Like you're not carrying the weight of the world anymore. I'm working on it. It shows. I'm proud of you, you know. For what? For doing the work. For not giving up on yourself. For letting David in even though it scared you. I almost didn't. But you did. That's what matters. She was right. I had let him in. And it had been worth it. Every scary moment, every vulnerable conversation, every time I'd wanted to run, but stayed instead. All of it had been worth it. 18 months into our relationship, David and I started talking about the future, not in vague terms, but in concrete ones. I want to live together, he'd said one night. I want to wake up next to you every morning and come home to you every night. That's a big step. I know, but I'm ready if you are. Was I ready? The old Maya would have panicked, found reasons to wait, protected herself from the vulnerability of sharing a space. But the new Maya, the one who'd done the work, who'd learned to be honest, who'd chosen to stay even when it was scary, she was ready. Okay, I'd said. Let's do it. Yeah? Yeah! Let's find a place together. The smile on his face had been worth every moment. Of fear? And that's how we ended up in Park Slope, in an apartment that needed work but had potential. Our potential. Moving in together was an adjustment. We had to learn each other's rhythms, negotiate space, figure out how to be together without losing ourselves. But we did it. We made it work. Because we both wanted it to work. Because we chose each other every day, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. And 2 years after Seattle, when David proposed over pasta and an argument about garlic, I said yes without hesitation. because I'd finally learned what love was supposed to feel like. Not desperate or consuming or all encompassing, but steady, honest, real. A choice we made together every single day, and that was worth everything. Planning a wedding when you've spent years convinced you'd never get married is a strange experience. Every decision felt weighted with meaning, every choice a declaration of who I'd become. David wanted something big, not huge, but substantial. His family was large and close-knit, and he wanted to celebrate with everyone. I wanted something small, intimate, just the people who'd seen me at my worst and loved me anyway. We compromised. 75 people. Immediate family, close friends, the people who mattered most. Are you going to invite Ethan? Jenna asked one day while we were dressing. Invitations. The question caught me off guard. Why would I invite Ethan? I don't know. You two are friendly now, right? You worked with Claire's company. We're cordial. That's different from friendly. So that's a no? I thought about it. About the coffee shop in Seattle. About the texts we'd exchanged occasionally. Over the past few years. About running into him with baby Sophie. It would be weird, I said finally. Not because I have feelings for him, but because our wedding isn't about our past. It's about our future. That's very mature of you. I'm trying. But the truth was, part of me wanted to invite him, wanted to show him that I'd made it, that I was happy, that I'd built something beautiful from the ashes of what we'd lost. But that impulse came from ego, not love. And I was trying to make decisions from love now, so I didn't invite him. The months leading up to the wedding were a blur of decisions. Flowers, music, food, seating charts. My mom was in her element, helping me plan every detail. I never thought I'd get to do this with you, she said one day while we were tasting cakes. Why not? After Ethan, you were so closed off. I worried you'd never let anyone in again. I worried about that too. But you did. You let David in. And I'm so grateful for that. Me too. We chose a vanilla cake with raspberry. Filling, simple and elegant. David's only request was that we have a chocolate groom's cake shaped like a coffee cup, which I thought was ridiculous and perfect. You're really leaning into the designer stereotype, I'd teased. Says the woman who spent an hour debating invitation fonts. That's different. Fonts matter. So does chocolate. Fair point. 3 months before the wedding, I had a moment of panic. Not about David, not about the marriage, but about whether I was really ready, whether I'd done enough work, whether I was healed enough to be a good partner. I called Dr. Reeves, even though I'd stopped regular therapy a year ago. I'm freaking out, I said when she answered. Tell me what's happening. I'm getting married in 3 months, and I'm terrified. I'm going to mess it up. That I'm going to fall back into old patterns. That I'm not actually healed. That I'm going to hurt David the way I was hurt. Those are normal fears, Maya. Are they? Because they feel pretty intense. Getting married is a big step. It's natural to question whether you're ready. But let me ask you something. Do you love David? Yes. Completely. Do you trust him? Yes. Do you trust yourself? I paused. That was the real question, wasn't it? I'm learning to, I said finally. That's all you need. You don't have to be perfectly healed to get married. You just have to be willing to keep doing the work, to keep being honest, to keep choosing each other. What if I fail? What if you don't? I told David about my panic that night. We were in bed, the lights off, and I'd been staring at the ceiling for an hour. I'm scared, I said into the darkness. Of what? Of messing this up. Of not being enough. Of hurting you. He rolled over to face me. Maya, you're not going to hurt me. You don't know that. You're right. I don't. But I know you. I know you're doing the work. That you're trying. That you care about us. That's enough. What if it's not? Then we'll figure it out together. That's what marriage is, right? Figuring it out together. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. Not easy, but simple. We love each other. We choose each other. We work through the hard stuff together. That's it. I wanted to believe him. And maybe that was enough. The wanting to believe. The trying to trust. Maybe that was all any of us could do. 2 months before the wedding, Claire reached out. We'd stayed in touch sporadically since the branding project, occasional emails, and texts. But this was different. I heard you're getting married, she wrote. Congratulations, I'm so happy for you. Thank you, I wrote back. How are you? How's Sophie? She's wonderful. Exhausting, but wonderful. Ethan's completely smitten, I bet. Listen, I know this might be weird, but I wanted to reach out, to tell you that I'm grateful for you. I stared at that message for a long time, before responding. Grateful for me? Yes. Ethan told me about your conversation in Seattle about how you helped him. Understand what went wrong between you two. It helped him be a better partner to me. So thank you. I didn't know what to say to that. The idea that my pain, my heartbreak had somehow helped their relationship felt strange. Not bad exactly, just strange. I'm glad something good came from it, I wrote finally. I hope your wedding is everything you want it to be. You deserve that. Thank you, Claire, that means a lot. And it did. Because it meant that all of us, me, Ethan, Claire, had found our way to something. Good. Different paths, different destinations, but all of us okay. Better than okay. 1 month before the wedding, I did something I hadn't done in years. I pulled out the letter I'd written to Ethan, the one I'd never sent. I read it slowly, carefully, feeling the emotions I'd poured onto those pages. The anger, the hurt, the love, the loss. And then I did something I hadn't expected to do. I wrote a new letter. Dear Ethan, it began, I wrote you a letter 3 years ago that I never sent. It was full of anger and pain and all the things I never got to say. I'm not going to send this one either, but I wanted to write it anyway. To close this chapter properly. I'm getting married next month. To someone who loves me steadily and honestly and without reservation. Someone who chooses me every day and who I choose back. I'm happy. Really, truly happy. Not the desperate, clinging happiness I had with you, but something deeper, more sustainable. I don't regret us. I don't regret what we had or how it ended. Because all of it, the love, the loss, the pain, the healing, led me here. To this life, this love, this version of myself. I hope you're happy too. I hope Claire and Sophie bring you joy. I hope you found what you were looking for. And I hope someday you'll look back on us and feel the same way I do now. Grateful for what we had, grateful for what we learned, and grateful that we both found our way to where we needed to be. Thank you for loving me when you did. Thank you for letting me go when you did. Thank you for being part of my story, even if you're not part of my ending. I wish you well. Always, Maya. I folded both letters together and put them in a box with other mementos from that time in my life. Photos, ticket stubs, the t-shirt I'd finally thrown away but had kept a piece of. Then I put the box in the back of my closet, not to forget, but to remember without pain, to honor what was while celebrating what is. The week before the wedding was chaos. Last-minute details, family arriving from out of town, a rehearsal dinner where David's uncle got drunk and told embarrassing stories. But through it all, I felt calm, centered, ready. The night before the wedding, Jenna stayed over. We drank champagne and painted our nails and talked about everything and nothing. How are you feeling? She asked. Good. Really good. No cold feet? Not even a little. You? She'd gotten engaged 6 months ago, was planning her own wedding for next year. Terrified, she admitted. But in a good way. That's how I felt at first. But now I'm just excited. You've come so far, Maya. I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could. Have. But I'm glad you didn't have to. We hugged and I felt overwhelmed with gratitude. For her, for David, for everyone who'd supported me through the hard years. For myself, for doing the work even when it was painful. The morning of the wedding, I woke up early. The sun was just starting to rise, painting my childhood bedroom in soft gold. Light. I lay there for a moment, thinking about the journey that had led me here. From that tiny apartment with Ethan to the hotel room in Seattle to therapy. Sessions to coffee with David to this moment. All of it had been necessary. All of it had mattered. I got up and looked at myself in the mirror. Same face, same body, but different eyes. Softer, more open. Less guarded. You ready for this? I asked my reflection. My reflection smiled back. Yeah, I was ready. Getting ready was a blur of activity. Hair, makeup, the dress that had taken 3 months to find. My mom crying, my bridesmaids laughing, champagne and music and joy. You look beautiful, my mom said, adjusting my veil. Thanks, Mom. I mean it. But more than that, you look happy. Really, truly happy. I am. That's all I ever wanted for you. There was a knock on the door, my dad looking handsome in his tux. It's time, he said. My heart jumped. Already? Already. He offered me his arm, and we walked toward the ceremony. Space. I could hear music, voices, the rustle of people taking their seats. You okay? He asked. Yeah, just nervous. That's normal. I was terrified when I married your mother. Really? Absolutely. But it was the best decision I ever made, even with the rough patch. Especially with the rough patch, because we worked through it. We chose each other. That's what marriage is. We reached the doors. Through them I could see the aisle, the flowers, the guests. And at the end, David, waiting for me. Ready? My dad asked. I took a deep breath. Ready. The ceremony was perfect. Not because everything went according to plan. The flower girl refused to walk. Down the aisle, the officiant stumbled over a word. Someone's phone went off. During the vows. But because none of that mattered. What mattered was David's face when he saw me. The way his eyes filled with tears. The way he mouthed, wow, as I walked toward him. What mattered was standing across from him, holding his hands, promising to choose him every day. What mattered was the feeling in my chest when he said, I do. Not this desperate, consuming feeling I had with Ethan, but something steadier, deeper. Home. When the officiant said, you may kiss the bride, David pulled me close and kissed me like we were the only two people in the world. And for that moment, we were. The reception was everything I'd hoped for. Good food, great music, people I loved celebrating with us. My dad gave a speech about how proud he was of the woman I'd become. Jenna gave a speech about our friendship, about how she'd watched me grow and heal and find my way. David's best man gave a speech about how David had been waiting his whole life for someone like me. He used to say he'd know when he met the right person, his best man said, that it would just feel right. And then he met Maya, and he called me the next day and said, I met her. I met the one, and I've never seen him happier than he is with her. I looked at David, and he was looking at me with that expression I'd come to know so. Well, steady, warm, present, love. Late in the evening, after the cake was cut and the first dance was done, I found myself alone for a moment on the terrace, looking out at the city lights, thinking about everything that had led me here. There you are, David said, coming up behind me. People are asking for you. Sorry. Just needed a moment. Everything okay? Everything's perfect. I turned to face him. I was just thinking about how different my life is now. How different I am. Better different? So much better. 4 years ago, I thought I'd never feel this way again. Never trust someone enough to let them all the way in. And now here I am, married to you, happier than I've ever been. I'm glad I could be part of your journey. You're not just part of it. You're the destination. He kissed me, soft and sweet. Come on, Mrs. Chen Martinez. Let's go dance with our people. Mrs. Chen Martinez. I'd kept my name but added his, a hyphenate that represented both of us. Independent but together. Perfect. The night ended with sparklers and laughter and goodbyes. David and I left in a shower of rose petals, heading to a hotel for the night. Before our honeymoon, in the car, he took my hand. How you feeling? Tired? Happy? Overwhelmed in the best way. Me too. Thank you, I said. For what? For being patient with me. For not giving up when I was scared. For choosing me every day. Maya, choosing you is the easiest thing I've ever done, and I believed him. Because I'd finally learned to believe I was worth choosing. Our honeymoon was 2 weeks in Japan. We'd both always wanted to go, and it felt like the perfect way to start our marriage, exploring something new together. We spent our days wandering through temples and gardens, eating incredible food, getting lost in neighborhoods where no one spoke English, and our nights talking about the future, about the life we wanted to build together. I want kids someday, David said one night in Kyoto. Not right away, but someday. Me too. Yeah? I used to think I didn't, that I was too broken, too scared. But now I think I'd like to. With you, we'd make good parents. You think? I know. I hoped he was. Right. On our last night in Tokyo, we went to a rooftop bar overlooking the city. The lights stretched out forever, millions of lives being lived below us. What are you thinking about? David asked. How lucky I am. How easily this could have gone differently. What do you mean? If I hadn't gone to Seattle, if I hadn't admitted I wasn't okay, if I hadn't done the work, I might have stayed numb forever. Might have never let you in. But you did. But I almost didn't. That's what scares me. How close I came to missing this. But you didn't miss it. You're here. We're here. That's what matters. He was right. I was here. We were here. And that was everything. We came home to our apartment in Park Slope, to our life together. And it felt right in a way nothing had felt right in years. Not perfect. We still fought about stupid things, still had to navigate the daily challenges of living together, still had moments of frustration and miscommunication. But we worked through it, together, because that's what we promised, to choose each other every day, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. 6 months after the wedding, I got a message from Ethan. Just a simple text. Saw your wedding photos on Jenna's Instagram. You looked beautiful. Congratulations again. I showed it to David. You going to respond? He asked. Should I? Do you want to? I thought about it. About the journey I'd been on. About how far I'd come. Yeah, I said. I think I do. I typed back. Thank you. Hope you and your family are well. Simple. Cordial. Honest. He responded, we are. Sophie's walking now, which is terrifying. Take care, Maya. You too. And that was it. A brief exchange between two people who'd once meant everything to each other. And now we're just friendly acquaintances. It felt right. Like the final piece of closure I hadn't known I needed. A year after the wedding, David and I started talking seriously about starting a family. It was scary, the idea of bringing a child into the world, of being responsible for another life. But it was also exciting. The next chapter of our story. Are you sure you're ready? David asked. I don't know if anyone's ever really ready. But I want this. With you. Me too. We started trying. And while we waited to see what would happen, we kept building our life. Together. I took on more sustainable design projects, work that felt meaningful. David started teaching design classes at a local college, something he'd always wanted to do. We traveled when we could. Hosted dinners for friends. Adopted a cat named Miso who was equal parts adorable and destructive. We built a life that was ours, messy and imperfect and real, and I was happy. Not the desperate, clinging happiness I'd once thought was love, but something deeper, more sustainable. The kind of happiness that comes from knowing yourself, choosing yourself, and then choosing to share that self with someone else. 2 years after the wedding, I found out I was pregnant. We'd been trying for 6 months, and I'd started to worry it wouldn't happen. But then it did. I took the test on a random Tuesday morning, not expecting anything. And when I saw those 2 lines, I just stared at them for a long time. David? I called out. He came into the bathroom. What's wrong? I held up the test, unable to speak. His eyes went wide. Are you? Yeah. He picked me up and spun me around. Both of us. Laughing and crying at the same time. We're having a baby, he said. We're having a baby. It felt surreal, terrifying. Perfect. The pregnancy was hard. Morning sickness that lasted all day, exhaustion that made working difficult, anxiety about whether I'd be a good mother. But David was there through all of it. Holding my hair when I was sick, taking over my projects when I was too tired, reassuring me when I spiraled into worry. You're going to be an amazing mom, he'd say. How do you know? Because you're you. Because you've done the work. Because you know how to love. I wanted to believe him. And slowly, as my belly grew and I felt the baby move, I started to. 7 months into the pregnancy, I had a moment of panic. We were setting up the nursery, painting the walls a soft yellow, and suddenly I was overwhelmed with fear. What if I mess this up? I said, sitting down hard on the floor. What if I'm not ready? What if I'm still too broken? David sat down next to me. Maya, you're not broken. You never were. I was numb for 4 years, and then you did the work to heal. You went to therapy. You learned to feel again. You built a life you love. That's not broken. That's strong. But what if it's not enough? It will be, because you're not doing this alone. We're doing this together. He put his hand on my belly, and the baby kicked, like they were agreeing with him. See, he said, even the baby knows you've got this. I laughed through my tears. Okay. We've got this. We've got this. Our daughter was born on a rainy Tuesday in October. 8 pounds, 3 ounces with David's eyes and my stubborn chin. We named her Elena, after David's grandmother. Holding her for the first time, I felt something shift inside me. A fierce, protective love I'd never experienced before. Hi, Elena, I whispered. I'm your mom, and I promise I'm going to do my best. I'm going to mess up sometimes, but I'm going to love you with everything I have. And I'm going to teach you to be strong and honest and brave. To choose yourself, even when it's hard. To let people in, even when it's scary. To build a life that's yours. David was crying. I was crying. Elena was crying. It was perfect. The first few months of parenthood were brutal. Sleepless nights, constant worry, the overwhelming responsibility of keeping a tiny human alive, but they were also beautiful. Watching Elena discover the world. Seeing David as a father, gentle and patient and completely smitten. Learning that I was capable of more love than I'd ever imagined. One night, when Elena was 3 months old, I was rocking her to sleep and thinking about everything that had led me to this moment. From that tiny apartment with Ethan to the hotel room in Seattle to therapy. Sessions to meeting David to our wedding to this. All of it had been necessary. All of it had mattered, and I was grateful. For the love, for the loss, for the pain, for the healing. For all of it. Because it had led me here. To this life, this moment. And I wouldn't change a thing. If you're listening to this and you're in the middle of your own heartbreak, wondering if you'll ever feel whole again, I want you to know you will. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. You'll do the work. You'll learn to feel again. You'll let someone in. And one day you'll look back on your pain and feel grateful for it. Not because it didn't hurt, but because it taught you something you needed to. Learn about yourself, about love, about what you deserve. And that knowledge will lead you to something beautiful. Maybe not what you expected, maybe not what you planned, but something real. Something yours. Something worth every moment of pain it took to get there. This is Maya Chen Martinez, signing off one more time. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps you write your own. And I hope your story has a happy ending too. Not because everything works out perfectly, but because you learn to choose yourself. And then you find someone who chooses you back, every single day. That's the real happy ending. That's the real love story. And you deserve it. All of it. Everything. But there's more I want to tell you. Because the story doesn't end with the happy ending. Life keeps going, and healing isn't a destination. It's a journey you stay on. Elena is 3 years old now. She's fierce and funny and completely fearless in the way only toddlers can be. She climbs everything, questions everything, loves with her whole heart. Watching her grow has taught me things I didn't know I needed to learn, like how to be present, really present, not thinking about work or worrying about the future, but just being here, now, building block towers that she'll knock down with gleeful abandon, like how to forgive myself, for the mistakes I make as a mother, as a wife, as a person, for the days I'm too tired or too impatient or too overwhelmed, for being human, like how to accept love without questioning whether I deserve it, because Elena loves me unconditionally, and watching her has taught me that. Maybe I'm worthy of that kind of love after all. David and I are talking about having another baby. It's scary, the idea of starting over with the sleepless nights and the constant worry, but it's also exciting. What do you think? He asked last night after we put Elena to bed. I think I'm terrified, but, but I want to. I want Elena to have a sibling. I want to do this again with you, even though it's hard, especially because it's hard. The hard things are usually the ones worth doing. Habe smiled and pulled me close. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just didn't notice. Fair point. I still see Dr. Reeves occasionally, not regularly anymore, but when I need to. When old patterns start creeping back in, when I feel myself pulling away or using work to avoid feelings. How are things? She asked at my last session about 6 months ago. Really good. But I've been having these moments where I feel guilty. Guilty about what? About being happy. Like I don't deserve it after everything that happened. Do you believe that? That you don't deserve happiness? No. Intellectually, I know I deserve it. But emotionally, sometimes it feels too good to be true. Like something's going to come along and take it away. That's a normal fear, especially for someone who's experienced loss. But Maya, you've built this life. You've done the work. You get to enjoy it without waiting for the other shoe to drop. How do I stop? Waiting? By reminding yourself every day that you're safe, that you're loved, that you deserve good things. It gets easier with practice. She was right. It does get easier with practice. Most days now, I can accept my happiness without questioning it, can enjoy my life without waiting for disaster. Most days. I ran into Ethan one more time about a year ago. I was in Seattle for a conference and I saw him at a coffee shop. He was with Sophie, who is about 4, and another little girl who must have been 2. Maya, he said, genuinely pleased to see me. What are you doing in Seattle? Conference. You? Just coffee with my girls. This is Sophie and this is Lily. Hi, girls. I'm Maya. Sophie looked at me with serious eyes. Are you Daddy's friend? I am. We went to college together. That was a long time ago. Ethan and I both laughed. It was, he agreed. We chatted for a few minutes. He told me about his work, about how Claire had just made partner at her firm. I told him about Elena, about my business, about the sustainable design work I was doing. That's amazing, Maya. I always knew you'd do great things. Thanks. You too. It was easy, comfortable. 2 old friends catching up, nothing more. As I was leaving, he said, I'm really glad you're happy. You deserve it. So do you. And I meant it, completely. Sometimes I think about the version of myself who went to that wedding in Seattle 5 years ago. The one who thought she was healed but was actually just numb. The one who was so scared of feeling that she'd shut down completely. I want to go back and tell her it's going to be okay. That the pain she's about to feel is necessary. That breaking open is the only way to start healing for real. But I can't go back. None of us can. All we can do is move forward. Do the work. Be honest. Choose ourselves. And then, when we're ready, choose someone else to. Jenna got married last year. It was a beautiful wedding, and I was her maid of honor. Standing next to her as she married Marcus, I thought about how far we both... Come, you ready? I'd asked her before she walked down the aisle. Terrified, but in a good way. That's how you know it's right. Is it always scary? The good things usually are, but they're worth it. She'd squeezed my hand. Thank you for everything, for being there through all of it. Always. Watching her marry Marcus, I felt overwhelming gratitude. For our friendship, for her patience with me during the hard years, for her belief that I'd find my way even when I didn't believe it myself. My parents are getting older. My dad retired last year, and my mom is talking about it. They're planning to travel, to do all the things they put off while they were, raising me and building their careers. We're thinking about going to Italy, my mom said last time they visited. That's wonderful. Want to come? We could watch Elena while you and David have a romantic getaway. I'd love that. Watching them together, still choosing each other after 40 years of marriage, gives me hope. It'd been through hard times, that rough patch they told me about, and others. I'm sure they never mentioned. But they've stayed, they've worked through it. They've chosen each other every day. That's what I want. What David and I are building, not perfection, but commitment, partnership, love that lasts. I still have the letters I wrote to Ethan, both of them. They're in a box in the back of my closet, along with other mementos from that time in my life. I don't look at them often, but knowing they're there feels important. A reminder of where I've been, how far I've come. Sometimes Elena finds the box and asks about the photos. "Who's that?" she asked once, pointing at a picture of Ethan and me at graduation. "That's someone I knew a long time ago." "Were you friends?" "We were. Very good friends. Where is he now?" "He has his own family, his own life." "Do you miss him?" I thought about that. Did I miss him? "Sometimes I miss who I was when I knew him," I said finally. "But I like who I am now better." She nodded, satisfied with that answer, and moved on to the next photo. Kids have a way of asking the questions we need to answer. David and I have been married for 5 years now. We've had our share of fights, of hard conversations, of moments where we had to choose each other even when it was difficult. But we've also had so much joy, so much laughter, so many ordinary moments that have become extraordinary because we're living them together. Like Sunday mornings when we make pancakes with Elena and she insists on helping even though she makes a huge mess. Like date nights when we get a babysitter and go to dinner and remember who we were before we were parents. Like quiet evenings after Elena's asleep when we sit on the couch and talk about our days, our dreams, our fears. Those are the moments that make a life. Not the big dramatic gestures, but the small daily choices to show up, to be present, to love. I've learned a lot in the past 5 years about love, about healing, about what it means to build a life worth living. I've learned that healing isn't linear. Some days you feel great, and some days old wounds ache. That's normal. That's human. I've learned that vulnerability is strength, not weakness. That letting people see you really see you, messy and imperfect, and struggling is one of the bravest things you can do. I've learned that you can't pour from an empty cup. That taking care of yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. That you have to choose yourself first before you can truly choose someone else. I've learned that love isn't about finding someone who completes you. It's about finding someone who complements you, who makes you want to be better while loving you exactly as you are. I've learned that the past doesn't have to define the future, that you can honor what was while building what is, that you can be grateful for old love while celebrating new love. I've learned that forgiveness of others and yourself is essential, that holding on to anger and resentment only hurts you, that letting go doesn't mean forgetting, it means freeing yourself. Most importantly, I've learned that you are worthy of love, not because of what you achieve or how you look or what you do for others, but simply because you exist. You are worthy of love that's steady and honest and real. You are worthy of a partner who chooses you every day. You are worthy of happiness, of peace, of a life that feels like home. And if you don't believe that yet, that's okay. I didn't believe it for a long time either. But keep doing the work. Keep being honest. Keep choosing yourself. And one day, you'll wake up and realize you believe it, that you've internalized it, that it's become part of who you are. And that's when everything changes. I think about the question Ethan asked me in that coffee shop in Seattle. What kind of closure are you looking for? At the time, I didn't have an answer. I didn't know what I needed, but now I do. I wasn't looking for closure with him. I was looking for closure with myself. I needed to forgive myself for the years I spent numb, for the opportunities I missed because I was too scared to feel, for the walls I built that kept people out. I needed to accept that I did the best I could with what I had at the time, that survival is valid, that there's no wrong way to get through heartbreak. I needed to understand that healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about integrating it, taking the lessons, leaving the pain, and moving forward as a more complete version of yourself. That's the closure I found. Not in a conversation with Ethan, but in the work I did on myself. If I could go back and tell that version of myself anything, One standing in the bookstore in Seattle seeing Ethan for the first time in. For years I tell her this. You're about to break open. It's going to hurt. You're going to cry more than you have in years. You're going to question everything you thought you knew about yourself. But on the other side of that pain is a version of yourself you can't even imagine yet. Stronger, softer, more whole. Someone who knows her worth. Someone who can love without losing herself. Someone who can be happy without waiting for disaster. The journey is going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it. So don't run. Don't numb yourself. Don't hide behind work or walls or the illusion of being fine. Feel it. All of it. The anger, the grief, the loss, the fear. And then, when you're ready, let it go. Not because you have to, but because you want to. Because you deserve to be free. David just came in and told me Elena's asking for me. She wants me to read her a bedtime story. This is my life now. Bedtime stories and toddler negotiations, and a husband who still looks at me like I'm the most important person in the room. It's not the life I imagined when I was 23, planning a future with Ethan. It's better, because it's real, because it's mine, because I chose it and it chose me back. So here's what I want you to take away from my story, Yor. Heartbreak doesn't define you. How you heal from it does. You are not broken. You are breaking open. There's a difference. Healing takes time. Be patient with yourself. There's no timeline, no deadline. You get to take as long as you need. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to struggle. It's okay to have bad days, even years later. That doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're human. Do the work. Go to therapy. Be honest with yourself and others. Feel your feelings instead of numbing them. It's hard, but it's necessary. You don't have to be perfectly healed to be worthy of love. You just have to be willing to keep trying, keep growing, keep showing up. The right person will love you through the messy parts. They'll be patient while you heal. They'll choose you every day, even when it's hard. And when you find that person, let them in. It's scary, but it's worth it. Your past doesn't have to dictate your future. You can honor what was while building what is. You can be grateful for old love while celebrating new love. Forgiveness is for you, not for them. Let go of the anger and resentment, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. You are worthy of love, of happiness, of a life that feels like home. You always have been. You always will be. I hear Elena calling again. Mama! Story time. Coming, baby. I'm going to go read to my daughter now. Probably the same book we've read every night for the past month because toddlers love repetition. And then I'm going to curl up next to my husband and talk about our days and make plans for the weekend. And tomorrow I'm going to wake up and do it all again. Because this is my life. Ordinary and extraordinary, messy and beautiful, imperfect and exactly right. And I'm grateful for every moment of it, even the hard ones. Especially the hard ones, because they led me here. Thank you for listening to my story, for staying with me through the pain and the healing and the hope. I hope it helped. I hope it gave you something you needed. And I hope, wherever you are in your own journey, you know that you're not alone. We're all just doing our best, healing at our own pace, learning to love ourselves and others, building lives worth living. And that's enough. You are enough, exactly as you are, right now. This is Maya Chen Martinez, signing off for the last time. Go read your kid a bedtime story, or call your best friend, or take a bath, or do whatever it is that makes you feel like yourself. And remember, you're going to be okay, better than okay. You're going to be exactly where you need to be, I promise. Good night, and good luck, you've got this. Soft sigh. You've always had this. You just needed to believe it. And now you do, or you will. Soon. Pause. Everything is going to be okay. Everything already is. That a final sigh. The end. But also the beginning, because that's how life works. Every ending is a new beginning. Every loss is a chance to find something new. Every heartbreak is an opportunity to build a stronger heart. You just have to be brave enough to try, and you are. I know you are. Because you're still here, still listening, still hoping, still believing that things can get better. And they will. I promise, they will. Long pause. Now go live your life. The one you deserve. The one you've been building. The one that's waiting for you. It's going to be beautiful. It's final pause. Trust me. I know. Okay, I'm really going now. Elena's getting impatient. And David's giving me that look that says, "Are you talking to yourself again?" Which I am. But that's okay. Sometimes you need to talk to yourself. To remind yourself of how far you've come. Of who you are now. Of what you've survived. All right. This is really it. Maya Chen Martinez, signing off. For real this time. Thank you for everything. For listening. For caring. For being here. Soft smile and voice. Now go. Live. Love. Heal. Be happy. You deserve it. All of it. Every single bit. Ugh. Whisper. You've always deserved it. Pause. Goodbye. And good luck. And thank you. Final breath. Thank you for letting me tell you my story. Now go write yours. Make it a good one.